Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez back again. We're doing an actual video on Print Prism. If you haven't heard, this is a piece of software created by Mike Chaney of DDI Software, the creators also of QImage Ultimate. It's called Print Prism, and it will replace your spectrophotometer. If you have not heard about this, it's time that you do. Go to your browser and just search for Print Prism and read about it. $35 and a printer with a scanner that has been calibrated for this profile, such as the 8550 or the Canon G620, and also another standalone scanner has been calibrated to work with Print Prism. Now, what does this do? It creates ICC profiles as good, if not better, than your spectrophotometer. Your spectrophotometer relies on up to a couple thousand color patches to determine what the errors the printer introduces, trying to reproduce each one of those little patch color values, and then it interpolates. It tries to come up with what is missing, because you cannot put 16 million 0.5 color patches on a single sheet of paper. So it's going to use a lot of, if you want to call it guesswork, interpolation to try to give you a complete 8-bit correction curve so that your images are printed as accurately as possible. So assuming obviously that you have a well calibrated monitor, you will get as close a match to your monitor as it is possible. Well, those instruments will run you from $300, $400, $500 up to almost, well, several $1,000s actually. So for $35, and this is going to sound like a scam, but it is not. Believe me, trust me. And I'm going to show you how this works. I'm not going to actually do the procedure that will be coming up in other videos, and I've already done that on earlier videos actually. So we'll be doing a lot of odd papers, things that maybe you will never find a profile for. Say you own an 8550 and you want to print on some odd paper you found at an office supply store. You can create a profile for as little as $35, and that's for the software. You can create as many as you wish, but the software is only $35. And of course, if you already own an 8550, why not? So let me show you my latest. So I decided, because people are always talking about, hey, I have Canon papers. Maybe I had a Canon printer whose printhead died, and I decided not to get a new printhead because it's too expensive. So I got myself an 8550, and I would like to utilize those Canon papers on my 8550. Or I have another printer, but it doesn't have a scanner, but I also have an 8550. So can I make profiles on that other printer and create them using my 8550 scanner? Absolutely, you can. So let's take a look at some of these, and I'll go through the process, how this is able to work. In other words, I'm going to show you real quick here. This was done on the Canon Pro 200 using Precision Colors inks. You start by printing a chart that Print Prism provides you with. If you have QImage Ultimate or QImage 1, you set the color management to off. You open up the file to print this image at the original size, and 8.5 by 11. So you just need one sheet of paper, as opposed to if you're going to do a chart, say with a X-Rite spectrophotometer, you can do a triple sheet chart, total 1,600 patches. Well, that may cost you several dollars per sheet, depending on the paper type. We only need one. The reason we can get away with one is because we have thousands of patches. Not just a few hundred, thousands. So you print this with color management turned off in your driver, color management turned off on your application, which in this case If it's Q image, you can actually set that. There are other ways to get around this using Photoshop or other applications, but it's really difficult. You need a special app to be able to achieve a zero color managed print. It's always going to introduce some sort of color management. You cannot afford to do that. Okay. If you already own QImage, you're all set. Okay. All you have to do is use off on the color management setting. So you print it, let it dry for several hours. You're going to trim off the white borders. You will have a print such as this, surrounded by black borders. Try not to smudge the surface or anything like that. Once you have this printed and it is fully dry, you load it on your scanner, of course, upside down, and you open up the software. There are some settings you have to get correctly set, and you're done. Once it is scanned, you got to scan it 3 times. They stack the scans on top of each other, and that magnifies the accuracy of each one of these little squares. So you print it, there's going to be some errors in reproduction. Your printer is not going to be able to create a perfect match, all of these almost 10,000 little patches correctly. So the scanner is going to send that scan to the software. The software is going to analyze every one of those little patches, every single one. And it's going to compute whether any of them was printed incorrectly this way or that way, slightly off this way, whatever which way. And it's going to then assign a correction for each one of these patches. Imagine you trying to compute this by yourself. Okay. Create profile. You give it a name. It will then save it to your profile folder in Windows. You now have a profile that you can utilize to print subsequent images with. Okay. Isn't that cool? Basically the same way you'd create a profile with a spectrophotometer, except you have many, many less patches to scan. And it takes longer. The whole process, the scanning process and the profile production, takes only a few minutes. It takes me at least 15-20 minutes to do a 3-sheet 1600 patch scan. And then, of course, you have to create the profile on top of that. So once you have this, and this is from the Pro 200, I went ahead and loaded the same paper. This is Glossy 2 on the Pro 200. I then loaded the same paper, okay, Glossy 2 from Canon on my Pro 200, and I produced this. This is my friend's image. He generated it himself. It is signed with a signature right here. And it is way, way too saturated for most printers to be able to reproduce. But yet this came out ridiculously good. It matches my monitor. And monitors usually outperform your printed output. Okay, because you're dealing with a transmitted image. And this is by reflective light. You're just seeing it, light reflecting off the surface. It's not going to be as pop as your monitor can provide. So this is actually nearly perfect match to my monitor. And I did this, again, in about 5 minutes. Of course, not including the drying time. So total, maybe 10 minutes. Print, dry, and then scan, and then produce a profile for $35. Lucky for me, I already had an 8550. Okay. Now, if you do not have an 8550 and we just want to start with a standalone scanner, they have already calibrated a standalone scanner that sells for like $70. So for a total of $105, you can start producing profiles to your heart's content. Okay. And finally getting really, really excellent results. Something that you may have been wishing for a long time. What about odd papers, really odd stuff? So this is a paper sold at most art supply shops. It's called Strathmore linen. It's Strathmore acrylic linen, and it has a linen texture. It looks like canvas, but it's really not coated for inkjet printer use. So I printed it on the 8550. There was a little trick involved in getting the best possible quality. I chose vivid fine art paper. That triggers both black inks. And the black inks are photo black, which is a dye black ink, and then a pigment matte black ink simultaneously being used. That gives you the deepest black you can possibly get with that printer. So I produced the chart, I trimmed it, here's the information, I put it on my scanner, scanned it, went through the process, it detected every one of those thousands of little squares, it put a little selection right in the middle of each one, and then it's going to do the corrections. Whatever errors were produced by this printer, it's going to correct that. All of that is going to be combined into something called an ICC profile. That's what a profile is. It's a series of corrections. And then I printed one of these crazy images again on that same paper. And by golly, it matches my monitor. True, the blacks are not as strong as they would have been on a regular photo paper, something coated for inkjet printing. But color balance, it matches my monitor. Density, it matches my monitor. Unheard of, okay? Unheard of. This is not meant for you to be printing on your inkjet printing printer with. So, next. You have Canon papers, and you want to be able to use them on your 8550. And you say you have in this case, it's Pro Luster. So you pick luster paper in the driver, and you just don't get a perfect match to your calibrated monitor. So you need to create a profile. Well, normally you would need, like I said, a $400, $500, in my case, $1,500 profiler. Yeah, that's ridiculous, right? And maybe you will get a good profile. I think probably for sure you will. I mean, come on. That kind of money, you better. So $35, and I already own the 8550. Again, I just created the file, let it dry, trimmed it, scanned it, went through the same process, and boom. Look at this. And yeah, what you see is what I saw on my monitor. It's just truly amazing. So I'm happy I have lots of Canon paper that I can utilize on my 8550. Of course, I can also use it on my Pro 200 or my Pro 1000. Now, I wanted to try Canon's premium glossy paper, and that is platinum gloss. But I wanted to do it on the 8550. Of course, I can use it on my Pro 1000. I already have a built-in profile for that on my computer from Canon. There it is again. Again, trim it, scan it, produce the profile. Boom. These are AI generated images that I made. And again, lots of pop, but it's not exaggerated. In other words, it is what I see, is what I get. Okay? Isn't that amazing? And then the weirdest thing happened. I was printing one of those charts, and I did not realize that behind it was a sheet of plain paper. And I accidentally, obviously, and the paper was a matte paper. So I had chosen a matte paper choice. In this case, it was Presentation Paper Matte. And I printed it. And of course, the profile that I made for that particular brand, matte paper, produced beautiful prints. But then I ended up with that one with the plain paper. Then I thought, wait a minute. I chose Presentation Paper Matte. Let me just redo this on purpose on plain paper and just choose the plain paper choice on the drop-down media menu. Why would I want to do that, right? Why in the world would I ever want to do that? So I did that anyway. Why not, right? What can I lose? And look at this. This is pretty bad, right? It looks kind of faded. Look at the black. It's just gray. Okay, this is not coded for inkjet printed. This will work on a laser printer, maybe. It's just for me to do nozzle checks and that sort of thing. I did use that profile to print one of those images, especially that one signed by my friend. And look at that. Sure, it's not like the one I just showed you previously, but the colors match. It is actually a match. So now I'm thinking, I do a lot of little brochures and things like that, and I'm using, I used to do it, actually, I'm going to begin doing it again, instructional brochures for people to use certain subject matter that I produce videos on. But I want it to be top quality, so there is a paper that you can buy that is basically plain paper, very lightweight, and it's coated for inkjet printing. When you look at it, it's got a very bright white coating on it, and it works beautifully with inkjet printers. So I'm going to make a profile for that. Boom. And then use that printer behind me to produce these little brochures that I will be sending to people, teaching them how to do certain operations. Isn't that amazing? Total price for the software, $35. There's no way you're going to find anything more affordable than that. What I'm worried is going to happen is that these big companies that produce spectrophotometers are going to come really hard on the owner of this software company, DDI Software. I hope not. I hope they don't start, on a bashing campaign or anything like that. They should be worried because this really, really works. And I'm telling you, I own several printers so far. All of them are producing beautiful results. I know several brilliant people who are backing this. And I first thought, they're just not going to even care to use that because they already own spectrophotometers and they know how to use them properly. But all of them are loving Print Prism. So what can I say? I'm not going to argue with them. They're a lot smarter than I am. So there you go, folks. All right, I hope you enjoy this. There'll be more to come. I will put this on my Patreon page for the first week. Patrons will be able to watch it before anyone else does on my regular channel. So thank you for your support. And again, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, as always, happy printing, everyone. Bye-bye.